Welcome to the Selling to Corporate podcast, where we're going to be challenging your sales beliefs around selling to corporate organizations and help you increase your bottom line profits every single month. I am Jessica Lorimer, your sales expert and guide in this world of selling to corporate companies, skyrocketing your company sales and making the impact that you really want in the world. Now, don't forget, if you do enjoy the show today, please do head over to iTunes and leave us a review. But enjoy this episode, and I am really looking forward to sharing some epic sales wisdom with you. Happy end of January. And I don't know about you, but my January feels long. I am feeling like I've done about 12 weeks worth of work in the first week of January. Well, at least the first week that I'm back and I'm recording this. So hopefully together we've made it through to the end, which is very exciting. Hopefully you are having a really good start to January and enjoying being back at your desk. I don't know about anybody else, but I'm actually really loving January, the energy that we've got in 2025. I have spent most of my month doing some really exciting delivery. I'll talk more about that throughout this episode because that's going to be exciting. But for me, I've spent a lot of January either delivering for corporate clients on projects that I had got signed off in November and December, and working with some of our amazing C-suite clients on the first sales sprint of the year, which has been amazing. We are, at the time of recording this, just halfway through the first task, which has been absolutely amazing, and seeing people book lots of great sales calls. People are actually already running those sales calls and getting proposals requested from them. So it's, that has been amazing to watch. And we're like I say, halfway through the first task. So like 3 days in, which just is, gets me so excited because it means that we're waiting on that first sale to come through, and it's going to be really, really soon. If we are on track, like I think we are in the first 3 days of it, it's going to be amazing. But I wanted to hop in with this episode and talk really about some of the changes coming to the C-suite for 2025, because I've had lots of questions about it. And don't worry if you're listening to this and you're thinking, oh God, Jess, you're just going to talk about the C-suite the whole way through. I mean, obviously the answer is yes, but I will be including some sales lessons along the way with that, and some things that you'll want to be considering about your sales process for 2025 selling to companies. Because as it's January, I've been getting lots of questions. Everybody's thinking new year, new them, new sales process. And people have also been asking me a lot about the C-suite and whether or not they should join, if it's right for them, what other options they might want to consider. So I thought I'd just give a quick episode really on the changes that we've made, because we made some pretty significant changes just before Christmas that you might not have heard about or realized yet. A little bit of insight into what some of those changes mean for you, for me, for the podcast, for just everything. And also to talk to you about alternative ways to work with me this year and finding the right fit for you, because I've been getting a lot of questions from people who are wondering whether the C-suite is the best fit for them, whether there are other options. And so I thought, do you know what? Let's just spend 20 minutes today together going through what it all actually looks like and what you will be expecting to see from me and the Selling to Corporate team this year. So before we dig into any of that, though, I just want to talk a little bit about context. I think you and I both know that context is really, really important. And over the course of January so far, there's been some really interesting things happening. Obviously, at the time that I'm recording this, a certain country is thinking about banning a certain social media platform. And who knows if and when that will come off and how that's all going to pan out. But I think it's interesting. It's interesting because the country in question and the social media platform in question have over 170 million users. And yet, in a survey that was launched and done by a social media company called Linktree last year, they actually surveyed over 9,000 people. And they found that those 9,000, or I think it was 9,500 if you want the exact number, 9,500 people who would consider themselves to be making money from social media. And they actually found that out of those 9,500 people, only 12% were making more than $50,000 a year. 12%. But 46%, which is quite a large number, were actually making less than $1,000 per year from social media. And that means that obviously with all the recent shenanigans around social media platforms, access, the way that they're going to look when political climates change and new presidents and all that kind of thing, it really means that people are reassessing just how much work they're having to put into being a social media influencer, user, seller on social media, and also how much work it is to sell to individuals, because people are tired. And what does that mean for you? Because you might be sat there thinking, well, Jess, why do I care? These people aren't relevant to me. I'm a coach, a consultant, a speaker, a trainer, a done-for-you service provider who isn't on social media. And the problem is that all of those people who are less qualified than you, who are only interested in financial gain, they're going to be moving across and trying to sell to corporates. And it's already happening. And in the event that that happens, we know that some people, not great at delivery, but they're great marketers. They're going to move across. They're going to start selling to companies. And you're going to have more competition than you had before. It's going to be harder to stand out if your sales process doesn't work. And it's going to leave you feeling really frustrated. So as you're thinking about your sales process in 2025, I want you to start thinking, how am I future-proofing my business? How am I future-proofing my sales process? Do I actually have a sales process that will help me future-proof my business? And you need to think very, very seriously now about the answers to these questions, because it is becoming almost painfully obvious that most people who have set up coaching, consulting, speaking, training, or done-for-you service businesses have not prioritized their sales processes or skills. And in fact, what they've done is spend thousands of pounds or dollars, whatever currency you're working with, on things like branding, things like SEO, websites, graphic design, hours, and we're talking thousands of hours, creating offers that they've never actually spoken to a decision maker about inside a company. And they're prioritizing all of these things because they think that it feels safer, that they can out-market everybody else. And so that'll make companies buy from them. And it isn't working. It doesn't work, and it won't work. And I feel like there's this burning responsibility now for me to say these things, because you and I have been connected on the podcast probably for quite a while. If you've been listening to the podcast, you're probably one of our diehards, right? The people who listen regularly. And I really appreciate that. But it also puts a burden of responsibility and trust on me to tell you when you're doing the right things and to refocus you when perhaps you're focusing on things that aren't actually going to move the needle. Because the whole point of listening to a B2B sales podcast is to learn and grow your B2B sales. There's no point in me telling you that everything that you're doing is perfect, because otherwise we would never learn. We would never grow, develop, change, or experience different results. But what I am noticing is that, and this is not directed at any any particular person, just as an FYI, so if you're listening to this and thinking, oh God, it's me, it's not. What I am noticing is that I get lots and lots of messages from people who say, Jess, I love the podcast. I love how you teach. I love what you do. Everything makes so much sense. What do you think I should do? And they'll explain their personal situation and they'll explain what they've done so far. And I'll say, these are the areas that you need to work on. And I think that you need to either go and consume a free resource, like a particular podcast episode or webinar, or I'll tell them that they should do something like join the C-suite and tell them to invest money in a resource. Or I'll recommend them to something else. I'll say, look, maybe you don't have a sales problem, but actually you've got a delivery issue and you should go and talk to this person or this person. And the big thing that I notice at that point is that people think I've alleviated in some way their problem, that they'll go and just give it a try on their own, and it's not working because they don't maybe have the follow-up strategies, maybe they don't have the template that they might need, maybe they don't have the structure, or there's something else in their business that, it is causing a problem to their sales process. And because they don't have those strategies or troubleshooting abilities or templates or whatever, they end up stuck in the same problem. And that, for me, is an issue, because the whole purpose of this podcast is to educate and make sure that people understand what best practice B2B sales really looks like. B, to inspire, to see people motivated and engaged and excited about trying new sales activities and seizing opportunities and doing the right things for their business, for their revenue, for their families, right? That's why most of us start businesses. And C, to make sure that if people are in the market or needing resources that can support them in implementation because they aren't able to go it alone, that they choose the right sales, training, consultancy, or investment for them. That's not always with me. Just as a hot FYI, I've referred many people to other providers if it's been more relevant. But I think we have to sometimes focus our thoughts and understand, actually, if we've been banging away at the drum for a little while and we've been taking parts of advice but not feeling like we're able or capable to implement full strategies because we don't know the missing pieces, or because we don't have the implementation support or the accountability or the ongoing guidance, whatever that looks like, then actually it is your responsibility as a business owner, just like it's my responsibility as a business owner, to navigate those situations differently. And I'm navigating that differently by telling you, hey, look, I want everybody who listens to the Selling to Corporate podcast to succeed. So my job is to warn you that we've got a few things coming up in this market that may mean you face more competition than you have been previously, which may mean that you need to recognize certain problems in your sales process and actually prioritize fixing them. And your job as the business owner in your business is to decide whether you're going to take that advice and do something about it or not. Which sounds like a really stark choice, and it's something that I hate saying. So you'll have to kind of forgive me on that, because there's no other way, there's no nicer way that I can put it this year. That's really hard. But there isn't any time anymore to wait and to waste for business owners. And that's really what I want to talk about in this episode, is some of the things, the pitfalls that you are going to see and need to watch out for, regardless of whether you decide to invest in the C-suite or me or whatever. But you are going to need to do something. So we need to understand what some of those pitfalls are, and you need to make some big decisions, bold decisions about what you're going to do. So let's get into it. Now, for me, it's interesting because we're in an economic and political climate where things have changed pretty rapidly. Not to rehash any previous episodes that I've done, but, we are in an interesting world, politically and economically, where governments have been making some really interesting decisions around budget, and specifically in the UK, at least, the way that they are going to tax corporations. And of course, this isn't a political podcast, but interestingly, what governments don't always think about is, if we penalise companies, if we tax companies too heavily, guess what's going to happen? They're not going to have money to employ people, and they're going to make layoffs. And, companies typically are quite risk averse. They have whole teams dedicated to risk management. And one of their big priority areas when governments make big changes around spending is not to look at their external supply spend, despite what you might see in the media. It's actually to look at their permanent headcount. And as a result of a lot of the things that we are seeing, politically and economically around the globe, we're seeing a lot of companies who've made preventative layoffs, who are making staff redundant, who are making big reductions and savings in their permanent headcount. Now, the good news is, for those of us who are external suppliers, is that that means those jobs still need to be done. And believe it or not everybody who works for them is going to be happy to do more with less or on the same wage. So they are going to be using external suppliers, whether that be coaches to support leaders in motivating and inspiring and engaging hard, overworked, stressed teams, whether it's hiring consultants to come in and set pieces of the strategy or actually do work with them on change projects, transformation projects, other things that are happening in programs of work, whether it's getting trainers in to upskill people within the organizations to do different jobs and harness their abilities to do different jobs really well. It might be getting in speakers to motivate and inspire, or it might even be using done-for-you service providers, reducing permanent headcount and actually getting service providers in who can not contribute to the permanent headcount, but who can help them to achieve specific results or work on a specific project, create something, podcasts, web design, having virtual assistants, those kinds of things. So you might be thinking, well, Jess, then what's the problem? If they're going to be hiring all these external suppliers, who cares? And believe me, that is the majority of my thought. However, the difficulty is that most external suppliers, most small business owners are not very good at selling to corporate. That's what I've figured out over teaching. I don't know, we're at about 29,000 people that I've taught over the last 10 years. Seems like quite a big number, and is quite a big number. But what I've learned is that a lot of small businesses are not good at selling to corporate companies. And there are a variety of reasons for that. Everything from not understanding how to sell to a corporate company. So not understanding what a best practice process looks like, or not having a clear grip or understanding of specific parts of that process, like lead generation, for example. Lots of people struggle with knowing who to target, what to say in messaging, which method of lead generation to use. We have other people who struggle to run sales calls. They have nice calls and people seem really positive, and then they go nowhere. They don't ever end up in sales, right? So we have people who struggle with the actual strategic side and sales skill side of running a sales process. And then we have other people who struggle with other elements like mindset. People who, maybe come from public sector backgrounds, for example, or charity backgrounds, who feel really uncomfortable talking about budgets, money, things that might make decision makers feel a little uncomfortable. We have people who struggle with mindset around rejection and around the directness of rejection that can happen when you're working B2B. And as a result, they avoid activity that might get them experiencing that rejection. And then we have people who, struggle to implement. So for them, maybe they have a good theoretical grasp of what a best practice sales process looks like and what they should be doing, but they lack implementation or accountability support to actually get it done. And, causes problems all of its own. So over the last 10 years, I've realised that lots of small business owners, whilst they are amazing at delivery and would be incredible service providers for organisations, just aren't successfully selling to them. So they're either experiencing a complete lack of sales, less than 50k a year in selling their own services, or they're experiencing severe feast or famine. So they'll sell, have a big sales period, end up in a big delivery period, not have any time to do any other business development, and then just have a huge trough period where they're not making any sales. And so they flip from kind of everything's great to, oh my gosh, there's nothing. And it's actually pretty rare to see people who are without sales training successfully selling to corporate companies in a streamlined and predictable way. It's really, really rare. So if you're listening to the podcast and you are doing that, give yourself a pat on the back, like, because you are as close to a natural salesperson as you can possibly get, right? And this is the interesting thing. So obviously I did a survey last year. In fact, some of you very generously contributed towards that survey with data and talked to me about what was going on in your sales process and your business. And some of the results were actually really interesting. I talked about some of the results on an episode just before Christmas, and there were some standout things that actually genuinely just made me interested in other sales related questions. You know, I had over 80% of people said that their big focus for 2025 was revenue. But there was a tiny percentage of people who were even thinking about investing in sales training for 2025. And don't get me wrong, maybe that's because they were like, oh gosh, we're filling out a sales survey for a salesperson. Maybe we don't want to admit that we will be investing in sales training in case she sells it to us. But a lot of the responses were actually things like, I've just never allocated budget to sales training historically. And I have no plans to this year. And for me, that's interesting. And it raises questions like, why? Because if you want more sales and you want to be great at sales, then surely the natural thing to do is spend more time and energy learning about it and doing the right things, because that saves tons of time and lost sales down the road. But that's thinking about it in a very black and white way, isn't it? And I appreciate everyone has their own challenges. People wonder whether they're going to have enough time to implement things. People have different focuses around the budget that they want to spend. Like there's no judgment in any of this. It's just that I think we need to start having different conversations about it, because it is interesting. And based on the survey results that I saw last year, I realized, I was like, well, actually, there are some things that we could do differently about the C-suite that would actually make it easier and just, I don't know, a more streamlined experience for people joining. Because based on what we're seeing in the survey, which was that most people were finding themselves to be kind of disengaged with digital learning and communities, part of that was, what can we do in person? How can we increase support and accountability, but without people feeling overwhelmed, like they have to go through an entire course week by week, or, you know, read a bunch of emails or whatever, or hang out in a Facebook group and be in there every single day forever. And the other thing that was quite interesting was that some people were just like, I don't want community. I just want to do the thing. And I found that really interesting too. There were just people who were just like, I don't have the bandwidth to focus on other people right now. I just need to focus on me. And I thought, God, you guys are healthy boundary setters and I love it. And I genuinely, I was like, this is great. But it did make me realize that there were some things about the C-suite that I wanted to change from the results that we'd seen in the survey. And it also made me realize there are some things I wanted to change about the C-suite just because my business will change and grow and evolve, and, you know, things won't always look the same forever. So that's where we are. The market has shifted politically and economically, means that with more redundancies come more people who are freelancing or going into freelancing and will be trying to sell their own consulting, coaching services back into companies they already worked with, which will mean more competition for people like you who have been trying to sell to corporates, you know, however successfully you've been doing that over the last year. And obviously people are learning differently, right? That's what I got from the survey last year, was that not everybody wants to be part of an interactive program anymore, because the digital world, it's just been a lot to be online for the last 5 years. And so people are just a bit tired of Zoom and, you know, Facebook and whatever. And some people want more in-person connection, accountability, implementation. And some people just want to consume it themselves and do it themselves. And that's why the changes for the C-suite have come about. And so this year, it's going to look a little bit differently. And you might have seen some of this in newsletters that I've sent out, in transparent sales emails that I've sent out about it. And also, heard about it from other people who've maybe recommended the podcast to you or the C-suite previously. But I thought, well, why don't we just address it on the podcast? Then you can hear me talking about it. And if you've got questions about your specific situation, you can let me know and then I can answer them. So there have been a lot of messages from people about who the C-suite is right for. And I think that that's a really good place to start. So this year, there are going to be a couple of options to work with me in a different way. One is for people who are making less than £100,000 or currency equivalent in revenue from B2B sales. So if you are not yet making £100,000 or equivalent currency revenue in B2B sales, so selling to companies, then the C-suite is your best option. And we have two different opportunities for the C-suite, and I'll talk through those in a sec. If you are already making over 100,000 a year, so in pounds or equivalent currency, then the other option is the boardroom, which is something that I am running this year, that I have run in various iterations over the last probably 7 or 8 years, but it is only for those who are already making over 100,000 a year. If that's you and you think I would like to spend some time working with Jess in a more one-to-one capacity to achieve sales revenues of 250k, 500k, 750k and above, then let me know and we can have a discussion about that. That in itself is an entirely different thing you won't find on my website. You might find that I send out a couple of newsletters out about it this year, but that is very much invite only. So it will rely on people who flag themselves as being already at that revenue level or above. And we already have 5 out of the 10 spots that I will open up this year filled for it. So we have very, very limited spaces. It's a very, very curated community. And really, it's about me supporting people who are really streamlining, focusing and scaling their B2B revenue in 2025. If you are under that 100k mark, then the C-suite is the best option for you. All right. And there'll be some people who listen to this and think, oh God, I am over 100k, but also I still want to do the C-suite because maybe I haven't put in some of these processes yet. And actually, I could end up scaling my revenue quite significantly just by doing that. So as always, there are unicorn instances. And if you do have questions about what the right option is for you, please let me know. But just be aware, if you do email me and say, hey, Jess, I'm wondering what the best option is for me. Here's my situation. I am going to come back with whatever that I think the best option for you is. And sometimes that's not clear for people. So I'm just letting you know transparently. Hilariously, I had a couple of messages, not last year, the year before, from people who would email and be like, oh, yes, I'm just wondering whether I should buy this or this. And I tell them based on their situation. And then they'd be like, oh, I just can't believe that you would sell to me. So just so that we're all on the same page, if you do ever ask me what you think or what I think you should do or buy, I will tell you. And if that's likely to cause offense, I apologize in advance. Okay, so the C-suite. If you're making less than 100k a year in B2B sales currently, so that is B2B sales only, doesn't count anything that you are doing B2C if you happen to be selling to individuals, then you should be looking at the C-suite. And the C-suite is or has 2 versions this year. It has the C-suite 25, which is a live version of the C-suite. We have about 15 spots left for this. And this is the one that you will have seen most often before Christmas in newsletters, in sales emails, in a rather snazzy Google Doc. You can tell how I roll with tech before Christmas. Anyway, we have about 15 spots left for that, and that includes the entire C-suite portal, obviously with all of the amazing strategies, templates, and sales techniques that participants over the years have used to create literally thousands of pounds themselves and millions of pounds in collective C-suite group in revenue. It also gives you access to monthly hot seat sessions directly with me. So these are group sessions that everyone can attend. They're drop in, drop out. You can bring along things that you would like me to review, like proposals, metrics, messaging that you might be creating, and anything that you want me to troubleshoot or give you specific guidance on. Every quarter, there's a specific messaging hot seat that's for people who want specific messaging help around their lead generation, messaging, newsletters, or other B2B sales assets. You also get access to the sprints. We do 2 sales sprints in 2025. One has already started and it's amazing. So you can catch up on those epic tasks and generate yourself some immediate calls and proposals and things like that, like our other participants are already doing. And one is in September. So kicking off Q4 in the very, very best way to give you some extra accountability and support around implementation and to avoid procrastination by thinking about what you should be doing. Instead, you'll be told each week, this is exactly the task that you need to focus on for maximum results. And with that, you also get a one-to-one with me that you can use anytime in 12 months. And of course, you get access to the 3 in-person implementation days that we will run in 2025. Now, it's worth noting that the first one of these happens on January the 27th, which is, I think, about 3 days after this goes out on air. So if you're buying this on the Friday, then great, we will see you on Monday. And we'll have another one in April and one in September. So the key dates for those will be January the 27th, April 28th, and September 15th. So we'll be running those in central London. They are not integral to attend. Anybody who can't make any of those dates will be sent out the tasks and learning along with a list of other people who weren't able to attend that date so that they can catch up and do some co-working in their own time if they want. All right. But you do get an option to attend those in-person implementation days, and they are specifically focused around key areas of the sales process to practice in a safe learning environment. So think actual implementation, me reviewing your lessons and new things in person, and of course a lot of role play, because sales it's all about role play. So that's what you get access to if you decide to join the C-Suite 2025, all right, or the C-Suite 25. The other option is to join the C-Suite self-study. Now, in previous years, the C-Suite self-study, when it first came out, included monthly hot seats and things. The C-Suite self-study will no longer include any live support. So if you're one of those people who said, actually, Jess, I just want to crack on, implement strategies, implement templates, and just do it, then the C-Suite self-study is for you. Now, that includes the entire portal, obviously, all of the strategies, templates, techniques that everybody has used to be able to go on and create the incredible results that our participants have had over the years. And it also includes access to the C-Suite self-study Facebook group where you can network and meet other participants. So you can build those referral networks. You can ask for support and guidance from other people who are participating in the self-study, and you can get your own accountability and guidance in there as well. You also will have access to a one-to-one with me. Again, you can use it anytime in the next 12 months or from the 12 months from when you join, but there won't be any other live support. So there are no monthly hot seats. You would not get access to the in-person implementation days or the sales sprints. All right. So it's totally up to you. If you're somebody who is incredibly self-motivated, driven, knows that once you've got the strategies and techniques, you're really, really good at making that time to implement, then the self-study is absolutely for you. It comes with all of the troubleshooting, metrics and support videos that you could want and need so that you are able to not only implement the strategies, but you're also able to refine them over time. And you're also able to understand how you can make your processes more efficient, more streamlined, how you can make your results even better. And if you are somebody who knows that actually you thrive when you are working alongside a community of people who are all heading for the same goal at the same time, who wants to do more in-person work this year and get a bit more connected in person with people, and who wants my ongoing support and accountability, then you will want to join the C-Suite 2025. Like I say, if you're at the point where you're under 100K a year in B2B sales, those are the best options for you. So it is the C-Suite, but you can decide what kind of support level you want with that. If you are over 100K a year, that's at the point where you would want to consider the boardroom, and probably equally where I would want to consider you for the boardroom, because it's a two-way street. If I'm going to be working with people very, very closely, I like to know who I'm working with, and I like to know that I want to spend that time and energy on them and their business, because that's where I'm in the trenches with them. So if that's you and you are thinking, actually, I might want a fractional sales director in my business this year, then let me know. Send me a little overview about your business and what your goals are, and then we can arrange a time to have a quick chat about whether or not the boardroom is going to be a good fit for both of us, and make sure that it's there to help you hit the goals that you've got planned. So those are the options this year. Of course, we have got things like converting corporates coming up. If you haven't grabbed a ticket to that yet, and you just want 2 days of in-person networking, connection, and epic workshop sessions to improve your sales for the financial year end, financial new year beginning, then you can absolutely check that out. But in terms of the main ways that I'm going to be supporting people this year, it will be through the C-Suite or the boardroom. Okay. And just finally, I have had, like I say, lots of messages from people about what they should do. And I don't really believe in should or shouldn't. I don't, it's not I don't believe in them. That was an idiotic thing to say, wasn't it? But I don't believe in telling people what I think they should or shouldn't do. I believe in making recommendations that are best fit to the problems that they tell me they want to solve. But I don't believe that anyone should walk through life having this kind of like fear that they should do something or obligation. What I do want to make sure, though, that we talk about is with sales, it's the impact of not doing something or the consequences of not doing something are quite obvious, and they happen relatively quickly. So regardless of whether you decide you want to invest in something like the C-Suite to support your sales this year, what I do want you to do is keep an eye on the measurements that you need to be tracking to make sure that your sales are progressing in the right way and that your sales process is working in the right way. And also so that you can understand where you need to be making clear time, energy, and money investments into your sales process. Because I think sometimes that can feel unclear. And sometimes people think, oh gosh, if I'm doing really well, I don't need sales training because obviously I'm doing really well. And what they don't think about is, oh gosh, I'm signing clients, but I'm signing quite a lot. And that's going to mean that I have a lot of delivery, which might mean that I'm undercharging and will probably mean I don't have time for business development. And that's a problem. It can also mean that people leave it too late, right? That people will go, oh, the sales they're not working out right now, but I'm going to give it 3 months. I'm going to give it 6 months and see how it goes. And then by the time they get there, they're like, oh gosh, I still haven't made any sales. And now this is really difficult. And now I'm having to prioritize my business, but also prioritize potentially looking for jobs or being an associate elsewhere or something else that's going to take time away from your business development strategy, and mean that you need to be using more efficient or effective sales techniques around those other commitments. Okay. Just to be clear here, not advocating, not doing anything. If you're not making sales, absolutely become an associate, get a job, whatever. If you want to build your business around it, do it 100%. But don't feel like you just need to sit on LinkedIn and kind of panic about not bringing revenue in. There's no shame in building a business around having income, like from a job or contract work or associate work or anything else. Okay, so here are the symptoms that you might see, experience, or notice before your sales process really feels like it's gone to pot. Well, the first thing is you're going to be closing fewer deals. So if you notice that in 2024, you closed fewer deals than in 2023, and your average transaction value did not rise, then you have a sales problem. And that is only going to continue into 2025. All right. So If you're thinking, well, Jess only started my business in 2024, I don't have any historical data, you're going to need to keep an eye on that this year. So ideally, we always want to see sales trending upward. Now, either that is number of deals or average transaction value. So we want to see revenue increase in some way. And usually that happens by making more sales or by being able to successfully charge more. So if that's not happening for you and didn't happen for you in 2024, you've got a sales problem, you need to get it fixed. The second thing that you would notice is the time that it takes you to make a sale. So when we look at participants in the C-suite, we want people to be aiming for closing a deal from cold lead, so somebody that they had never known, never met, to paying customer in 90 days or less. And that's because, statistically, most salespeople who have had sufficient training will close sales from cold to closed in 90 days or less. So if your sales are taking longer than that to go through, particularly if they're lower than 100K, you have a sales problem, or part of your sales process isn't working as it should. Deals over 100K in value, again, any currency, will take a little bit longer because generally you're dealing with more stakeholders, more lengthy sign-off processes. There are other components that tend to be involved, but anything under 100K, 90 days should be closed. Third thing you might notice is competitors coming in and taking your market share. So again, if your sales process isn't really working, what you might notice is that you've either worked with clients who are now hiring consultants or freelancers that had worked in their organization previously, or if you've got good relationships with companies but haven't sold to them yet, you might notice that they're actually hiring competitors of yours. So whether that's because they worked there previously or whether it's because they just had a different sales process from you, you will, if your sales process or something in it isn't working quite right, you're going to start noticing that companies will, or decision makers will have lots of lovely conversations with you, but when it comes to paying, they're paying somebody else. So they might be getting ideas and inspiration and motivation and insights and things from you, but if they're not paying you and you're noticing that trend, then there's a sales process issue. And finally, if you're feeling overwhelmed and overworked, that's probably one of the biggest early indicators of a sales process problem or a sales problem in general. Generally, most people who feel overwhelmed and overworked when it comes to their sales process are the ones who are either going to experience feast or famine or are currently experiencing feast or famine revenue, because those people are working very, very hard to get sales. Then they're working very, very hard to deliver. Then they're working very, very hard to get sales again because they're in panic mode and there's no revenue coming in. And they're just always on that kind of cortisol raising revenue roller coaster. So if you are feeling overwhelmed, overworked, like you're not able to increase your prices this year because you're afraid that you might not get as many clients as last year, or because your current clients expect you to work at those rates, or you lack boundaries with clients and they kind of have you on call all the time, or they often go outside scope on projects and you're feeling like you have to do those things and say yes all the time because you don't want to lose them as a client, that usually signals that you have a problem or are about to have a problem with your sales process, because all of those things can be rectified by having a really clear sales process that give you enough opportunities in the pipeline that you're not worried about losing a client, or that you always feel like there are other clients on the horizon. So if you're noticing any of those things already, or you do start to notice those things across 2025, you will need to fix them. And again, however you choose to fix that, up to you, completely up to you. What I would say is that if you are thinking about making a decision on your sales training investments this year, just make sure that you're looking wisely, not at the market and what's out there and who to buy from, but at what problem you need to fix. And that's really, really important. So if you're somebody who has done all that you think you can possibly do with marketing, you're on social media, you're posting on LinkedIn, you've got a website, you're doing all these things and it just hasn't done anything, you need to actually invest in your sales process. If you're somebody who feels like you're on that feast famine revenue roller coaster, you need to make sure that you're thinking about your long-term sales process rather than short-term always, and how you might fix that problem. And if you're somebody who is feeling overworked, overwhelmed, and you want to be working with organizations in a strategic or a more long-term, higher price point way, you want to be thinking about sales mindset, and how you can create a more predictable pipeline so that you're not actually worried, or having that kind of fear around losing clients because you raise your rates or because you set boundaries with them, and instead working on that resilience piece and putting in place practical pipeline driving methods that are going to help you sign sales on repeat where you don't have to worry about them. All right. So rather than doing the whole, who's got the most glitzy, cool, fun program that I can invest in with lots of, whatever programs contain now, actually start thinking, what is the problem I need to solve here in my business, and making the right investment for it. All right. Enjoy the rest of your January. I hope that you have an amazing time and that you see lots and lots of epic sales coming through. In the rest of the year, we've got some really exciting episodes coming up. So the next one in February will all be about hiring salespeople to build out your B2B revenue, and whether or not that's a choice that you should make, want to make, can make now. And we've also got episodes coming up on the importance of corporate newsletters, some really exciting case study episodes coming up with C-suite participants, and of course just some fun sales shenanigans that I've got going on as well, so that you can learn from all of the ways that I'm selling to corporate clients this year. I'll see you really soon.